If I had to bet a large amount of money on who was going to be the king of the video game industry long term, without a doubt, I would put my money on Nintendo. And this is nothing new. Someone actually commented on one of my videos I posted from like 11 months ago where I declared Nintendo the king of the console war. And they just said like, wow, like you called this from a mile away. So you know what? If you're new here or if you've been watching for a bit, make sure to subscribe for, for that kind of foresight on the channel. But no, I've been seeing a lot of other YouTubers lately, one of the ones that I watch, are making videos about how Nintendo, they're winning. They won the console wars of the future, and I'm just like, no, duh. Like this has been obvious for quite some time, and now I made that video closer to the beginning of the launch of Nintendo Switch 2, where now we are now a year in, and there's a lot more data. A lot of big things have happened, like Sony stopping the production of physical games starting January 2028. Now that's a topic I've been covering a lot lately, and of course that's gonna swing stuff one way or another. That's a very important detail, and that's just one thing. But there are just so many things that I want to kind of go over again. Just the current state of the gaming industry right now, and Nintendo and PlayStation, and Xbox, and all that, and why I still feel stronger than ever that Nintendo is going to be the king of video games. I've already made other videos as well going over my collection of Nintendo Switch 2 games. This was collecting for the Nintendo Switch 2 is something I actually decided I was going to do starting in the Nintendo Switch 1 era. Nintendo Switch 1 was an absolute phenomenon. Tons of people loved it for the ability to be a home console and a handheld device at the same time. And it also just has like a wonderful library of games, right? That's what I love about the Nintendo Switch is just everything feels at home on Nintendo Switch. At Nintendo Switch, every single game. Nintendo has just incredible first-party games, and every generation of Nintendo, the best games on the console are their first-party games. I think the Wii U is such a good example of that because the Wii U is the only Nintendo console since I've been alive that I skipped. I did not buy the Wii U, even though it was after college. I actually had a job. I could have easily afforded a Wii U. No part of me wanted the Wii U. But every Wii U game that got re-released on the Nintendo Switch 2, I picked those up and I loved every single one of them. And I mean, they sold way better on the Nintendo Switch. And so like that just shows you that's like even on like their worst console, like Nintendo still pumps out incredible games. And exclusives are very important. They are very, very important when it comes to the gaming landscape. But also in terms of like just third-party games, indie's been a very popular subgenre of games, and a lot of people are like get PC and play indies. That's what I'm doing, PC and indies. Indies feel right at home on Nintendo Switch 2. Cat Quest is my favorite indie game that I've played on Nintendo Switch. I got it for like 99 cents, and I played that handheld in bed. It's just such a good memory. Cat Quest. I cannot recommend Cat Quest enough. It's one of the reasons why I really wanted to try Nicktoons and the Dice of Destiny, right? But this game also, like, why would I need the power of the PS5 for something like this? This feels like an Xbox Live Arcade game. I love Xbox Live Arcade back in the day, which is funny. That's like a whole other conversation for another time, not to get too into it, but Xbox Live Arcade were all digital games, and those could have obviously fit on disc, and no one like super complained about that at the time. And this game's a game key card, but it feels like an Xbox Live Arcade game. So like as I'm playing it, I'm kind of realizing I'm like, wow, this is like an Xbox Live Arcade game that I actually can own the physical license, that I can sell, have representation on the shelf, let my kids borrow it. And so I don't know, it really changes my mindset. Game key cards though, that's something that early on in the Nintendo Switch 2, when that got announced, people just destroyed it on that. Like it was very easy online if you wanted to just be politically correct to hate on game key cards. And I never bought into that. I think for myself. And just looking at the future of the industry, like back then, I think in that previous video, I was talking about that, like where you're heading to an all digital future. I want to try my best to help stop that by all means. And game key cards is one of those ways to stop it. But now as PlayStation announced that they're going to stop the production of physical discs, people are now looking at game key cards and thinking, oh, maybe that's not so bad. I can, buy it cheaper on clearance at retail. I can lend it to friends or family. It's not tied to an account, so my account gets hacked or banned. I don't lose all my games. I have to repurchase them. I have the physical license here in my hand. I can sell it. And then when I download the game, it works offline as if it was a physical game. And I think what hurt a lot is when the Nintendo Switch 2 launched, a majority of games were game key cards. And I still see stuff in comments to this day where people say that's like Nintendo Switch 2, like all you do are you're buying glorified digital games. And I can see that game key cards are glorified digital games. Like I can see that perspective. I don't think I super agree with it 100%, but they are less than full on cart games. However, the launch of a console is very important because when a console launches, if your game can be released at the launch of a console, you're going to get more sales than if it was launched later. So at the and that not necessarily like launch day, but like for that first launch holiday, like Christmas and all that. And so I think a lot of companies were just using the game key cards. Like at the time, there was only the 64 gigabyte size cartridge and the game key card. The game key card was way cheaper, and a game that's really small. This one is right here, 6 gigabytes. Why spend all the extra money for a 64 gigabyte cartridge? We have the game key card, and just these companies wanted to get their games on the platform, on store shelves for the holiday. And so I think that really skewed the numbers very heavily towards game key cards. But now we're over a month since the Nintendo Switch 2 launched, and we're very close to a 50-50 split on full-on cart and game key cards. Like as I keep looking at the list of like when I go look and shop for a game to add to my collection, there are more full-on cart games than like I can afford to buy, and it keeps going. We have the companies like Square Enix, Bandai Namco, Capcom. These are the guys that are profit maxing. They're the greedy ones. They're always going to release game key cards. And in the future, I would be actually concerned that once PlayStation comes out and they don't no longer have physical production of games, that even like if they want to save a buck here and there, that they would just release their games digital only even on Nintendo and not even spend the money to do a game keycard release. That said, I think there is a benefit to the retail space, and this is another part where Nintendo becomes king. My local Target just remodeled. And these retail stores, they don't remodel like every year or anything like that. It was a pretty big major remodel in the electronics section. And they completely got rid of one of the like video game aisles. So now there's two aisles. One of them is half Xbox, half PlayStation, and the other is completely Nintendo. So Nintendo gets a full aisle. Xbox and PlayStation have to split one. And that Xbox and PlayStation one, when they go full digital, that one's gonna be gone. And Nintendo's gonna be the only one there with a full aisle. And I don't think that they're gonna remodel the store, for another 8 or 10 years. Like it's gonna be a while. Like it was a pretty major remodel. They'll probably repurpose that aisle of the Xbox and PlayStation, but I think Nintendo's going to be there, and they're going to be the only ones who are there. And that retail presence and being able to buy your games physically on Amazon and all that, that not only applies to the hardcore collectors who care about like physical games and having them on the shelves and all of that. I think gift giving is just the biggest thing with Nintendo. Now, I know from my gaming career, I started off with an N64. That wasn't by choice. That's what my parents got me. Later got a GameCube, same thing, not necessarily by choice. I wanted a PlayStation 2 later, as there was other games on PlayStation 2 that weren't on GameCube. But then later, I became a teenager and wanted an Xbox 360. Didn't really want to play the Wii as much. Didn't even pick up a Wii U. Became a young adult, and Xbox One wasn't doing it anymore, so I wasn't just like fanboying them. I switched over to PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, and now we're in the modern age where like even in that PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, Switch came out, and I liked Switch a lot. However, what was kind of bugging me is like those were like modern games. I love retro games. I love like the old aesthetics, even though it's not perfect frame rates and all that, the old graphics. And Nintendo Switch didn't have the best graphics or anything like that, but it still was like modern games on that platform. So it was like the worst version of the modern games, and it always kind of bugged me. And so I kind of like made up. I never really collected for the Nintendo Switch. I actually it helped my physical and digital hybrid. I got a lot digital on that. Like I was buying a lot of Costco gift cards because you get like 10% off on the money, bring it to the eShop. Then there was like the vouchers and then the gold points. And I was just like trying to save money, and I did build a nice sized digital collection of Switch games. eShop sales, like a lot of people are saying that like Steam have the best sales, and there's no doubt about that. But eShop sales are great. I got a lot of games for very cheap, and then also stacking like the Costco savings and the gold points and like vouchers. I know like Tears of the Kingdom. I bought that game on with a game voucher because I was able to save $20, but also used the Costco gift card, dumped in some gold points. I got that digital, even though I'm a huge Zelda fan, and I'm like, I debated on getting that game physical, but I was like, you know what? Just the Nintendo Switch, it's just like just underpowered enough where it bugs me that like they're gonna release a Nintendo Switch 2. It's gonna be more powerful, and they're probably gonna just like re-release this game on that because Tears of the Kingdom came out so close to the end of the console cycle, and they're probably just gonna re-release on Switch, and that's exactly what they did. So I kind of decided early, like during the Switch 1 life cycle, that I was going to collect physically, like seriously for the Nintendo Switch 2, which I never really seriously collected games before. But it's like Nintendo Switch 2 was the platform that like I truly believe in because everything that I loved about the Switch and so many people loved about Nintendo Switch, it was just going to be better on Nintendo Switch 2. And it's not exciting. Like that was like the narrative, very easy to dog on again that like for Nintendo, who every console is so distinct and unique and fun and cool. The Nintendo Switch 2 was a boring upgrade. It was almost like upgrading like your iPhone or something. But that's all like I really wanted it to be because the Switch has every of those old Nintendo consoles packed into one. I think some people forget that the Joy-Con have motion controls, right? So it kind of has like even like a Wii built into it. Okay, so let's bring this all together because we're kind of got a lot of tangents, but there's like so many of these components that work together in tangent that's going to make Nintendo king. So Nintendo Switch 2 is now essentially graphics wise and performance wise, it's not necessarily on par with the PS5. It's still a little bit under, but it's higher than a Nintendo Switch. So a lot that was holding it back, it's now pretty good enough. I know like playing Resident Evil 9, I could tell where it was underperforming compared to like if I was playing a PlayStation 5 version, but it was just so good enough. And that's such an important aspect to all of this is that it is truly like good enough. And so we got to get into the price of the Nintendo Switch being $500. It's probably going to go up to $550. And then you can think of the PlayStation 6 being $1,000 and like the next Xbox anywhere between $1,000 and $1,500. And let's say Nintendo Switch 2 is $550. Even at that price, being close to half of the competition, this is going to be the console that parents give their kids for gifts. This is going to be most entire generation's first console is going to be the Nintendo Switch 2, just by price alone. And then you have the retail space, right, where there's still physical games to get as presents. There's so many people I've seen comments that like when that argument comes up with like giving gifts for kids, or it's like you can give the kids a gift card, and it's just like you I don't think you have kids or anything like that. Like just put presents under a tree. Like you kind of want volume of presents, like the pictures and all that, and just the joy of opening a gift. Like there's like opening up an actual game physical box, it brings way more joy. This feels more like a toy that which is kids like toys, right? It feels way more like a toy, like something real and tangible versus just like a gift card. And it's like now you can buy that game that you wanted. It's not nearly as special, and just anyone who thinks that's not a real thing like is just out of touch with reality. And so that's gonna be very powerful because nostalgia does play a role in this, right? So like I, as many others, started with N64, GameCube. You start out as a Nintendo console, and when you get older, like during the Nintendo Switch era and Nintendo Switch 2, that nostalgia kind of like plays a role in it, and you kind of want to go back and play those games, or it's like, oh, like Nintendo again, mixed with the fact that the console is now powerful enough to play all other third-party games to a good enough standard. It's like, why need a $1,000 PlayStation 6 or a $1,500 Xbox? You got your yearly ball and gun gamers, right? With your Maddens, your FIFA, your Call of Duty. These people are probably not going to want to drop $1,000 or $1,500 on a new console just to play these games. And they're probably going to stick with PlayStation 5 for a very long time. Many people are still on PlayStation 4. And when eventually these games are not going to come out on those platforms, eventually it's not going to be Nintendo Switch 2 and PS5. It's going to be Nintendo Switch 2 and PlayStation 6, digital only, $1,000+. And Nintendo's going to be at the store shelves. The games are going to be there. You're going to have these people going in the aisle. They're going to see Madden at the store on the Nintendo console. They're not going to see it on the store shelf for PlayStation 6 or anything else. They're going to see the price is $550, maybe $600 by then. Who knows? But then it'll be like, wow, that's a lot cheaper than the $1,200 PlayStation 6. I just want to play some Madden. And then, maybe they'll look into it and be like, wow, this is just good enough. The people who can afford these consoles are not teenagers that they're targeted to. They're going to already have a job. You need to be like post college, have a real job, have a real career to afford these consoles. And at that point, you have less time. And so for a lot of people, it's going to be like, why would I spend all that extra money for a stronger console to play Madden when I can play it on like the Nintendo Switch 2, which is like just as good? And it's hard to talk about this without like even entertaining the thought of the Nintendo Switch 3, because like I said, people are gonna hold on to these PlayStation 5s and as long as possible. Maybe the Nintendo Switch 3 comes out by then. And that's what's interesting about Nintendo's position right now, being a generation behind, is like I can't even like imagine like what happens with the PlayStation 6. It has to be 4K 60 without a performance or graphics mode, or I don't know what the heck they're doing. But then after that, what do they do for PlayStation 7? I have no idea. Like, where do you go past 4K 60? It like just doesn't matter anymore. Nintendo Switch 2, because it's still technically underpowered, like you can see a Switch 3 being like just as good as a PlayStation 5. And like the price of the PS6 and the next Xbox can be so high that's like they could probably make the Nintendo Switch 3 be like $1,000, not $1,000, like $800 and 1 TB hard drive. I can see it right now, like still have physical disc, and like let's bring like the white banner of the Wii and like the gray text, so like make it like Wii style Nintendo Switch 3, just no red. The boxes are white like the Wii. I can totally see that, have that slot in there. Maybe like the biggest issue with Switch 2 is just frame rate now. Like the graphics look perfectly fine. Maybe they can unlock some performance. Maybe when we get a Switch 2 Pro edition this generation that can do some of that. I don't know, but you get a little better frame rate and these games are just fine. And I don't know, and you get older, so you're gonna have the older people who are like, I don't have much time, and I have other real world responsibilities to spend more money on. Like the Switch is just good enough; it gets me by, and that's important to remember. Is like those ball and gun games like Madden and Call of Duty; those haven't been on a Nintendo platform for a while. You could argue that they've never truly been on a Nintendo platform. They've always been super compromised. But now on the Switch 2, it's like they're a little compromised, but way better than what they ever have been in the past. Well, at least since like the GameCube era. I know a lot of people say just like switch to PC, that like everything I'm saying is like, you can just get on PC for cheaper and better graphics. I think PC is becoming that new like teenage young adult demographic thing, kind of like how I was talking about 360 and then, early on PS4, that it really is going to cater to that audience. But as like, I don't think even cheaper. Like, I don't think the PC, like most like parents for that generation, they're gonna be getting like kids just like PCs, right? Like that's what the Nintendo platform is for, like lockdown in terms of like accessing the internet and all that. That's like where people are gonna start. I'm sure they're gonna grow up and transition to PC for a bit. Just like most of us transitioned away from Nintendo. But then nostalgia is important. They're gonna come back to Nintendo probably later as they get older. Even PC gamers, I think it's really funny. I make a lot. I don't make many PC specific videos, but there's a lot of PC gamers who join in, and I'm not even talking about people who like have like Nintendo and PC. That's a great combo, no doubt about it. But who are just like full 100% PC. It's really funny that like these people who are 100% PC, were supposed to be this gamer's paradise. I can play every game that ever existed for free. And yet they're watching console videos on YouTube, and then like they complain about Nintendo having exclusives and not releasing them on Steam, and they also emulate all of Nintendo games like Game Boy, N64, GameCube, and Switch. Like these PC gamers just want to play Nintendo games, and it's like, I don't know, it's just really funny to me that like they do everything but like buy a Nintendo console. But I get it. And yeah, I don't know. Like that demographic is never going to go away. That market's never going to go away. But we're talking about who's going to be king of gaming. And I think it's going to be Nintendo. I mean, they have the factor of going to the younger audience. They have the nostalgia factor for older audiences. Especially as you get older, I don't think you want to, like, a lot of people are going to not want to sit at the PC anymore as their back starts hurting, as back pain happens. I experienced back pain myself because I blew my back out in the gym in college, and I work at my desk all day. So it's really hard to sit at the computer to play games. I can sit at the computer for like 10 minutes, 10, 20 minutes and record a video. But it's hard to sit and enjoy playing a game as I think of the back. I Got a love sack couch. That's what that's for. It's a very great sitting, and I really enjoy it. But yeah, PC's missing those exclusive Nintendo games, which are some of the best games of all time, and everything that PC offers feels at home on Nintendo Switch 2, especially now that they added mouse controls. So Switch 2 has now just a home for every single type of game. You can port any game over Nintendo Switch 2, and it feels like home at it. And so I think over time that's going to attract a lot more people to Nintendo, especially when it comes to like just other consoles becoming more and more overpriced. We're not even talking about just like pure digital games. Like these ball and gun gamers who just play Madden every year, they're not playing like Madden 19, right? Like they play the newest version every year. I don't think that you're going to value their like digital backlog that much to like not want to like port over to a different console. The price is just going to be way lower than the competition by orders of magnitude that I think that alone is going to convert more people. It's going to be the only place for physical games, so people who want that ownership and are fighting that fight right now, that's a place to go to collect video games, and like it might be the last space, even though that there are game key cards a percentage. I don't know. I look at other people's shelves and like their collection videos, and they have physical games, but then they also have imports. But I don't really love imports. Like maybe I'll try to get into that a little bit, but I like the North America release. I like all the spines looking unique, but I kind of feel like game key cards are just like another like form of that. Like imports, it's just something that's like it's not that North America full release, but it's a little lesser than. But I still have a lot more rights than if it was just a pure digital game, and so I do appreciate that. I mean, I'm not even worried about game key cards and not being able to re-download anything that they offer, because you can still download Wii games and DSi games. Like I don't think Nintendo's ever shut down one of their services to re-download. And Nintendo Switch 3, if that has a key card slot, then that's just a whole nother generation that you're going to be able to re-download the game. So it might be 20 years before they stop offering a key card slot, and then like 20 years after that before they turn off servers, if they ever do. Nintendo's been a company for over 100 years. I don't see them going bankrupt by any means. And then, yeah, they're just going to continue to grow with other stuff like their movies, their theme parks, and all that. The toy lines, like you see Nintendo toys at the store, the Mario toys, you see Donkey Kong toys, the Zelda toys are coming out, Pokemon. But you don't see PlayStation or Xbox, like hardly, not nearly as dominant. And so that adds to just the whole gift giving thing for the kids to build that nostalgia. That's nostalgia that we had, that they're going to eventually come back to in the future. And I just think Nintendo's gonna be king, and I don't know. I think the only one that can really compete is going to be PC, but that's just for that like middle bell curve where people think they're too cool for Nintendo. They want to go PC, but even so, I think the PC components are gonna go crazy high. And in the all digital future, I think the PC games are going to go up. I think security and all that is going to increase and, make it harder and harder to emulate. I think the sales are going to go down. I think it's all around going to be like just a worse ecosystem. I mean, a lot of people who buy a PC now in 10 years is going to be so bogged down with updates, hardly working. And yeah, I don't know, like eventually they're going to switch to a different architecture, and then you're not going to be able to play the same games, right? Like you can't install a Windows Vista game on your Windows 10 or 11 PC. I think that the cycles are just getting longer, but eventually the stages are still going to happen. So that's going to be really interesting. I'm sure there's probably going to be PC emulation and all of that. Maybe not as big of a deal as it's going to end up being, but I do think that the glory days of PC are going to go downhill, especially compared to price. And I don't know, I think Nintendo, they're hitting all these sweet spots, and they're just going to be king. I think they're already king, and they're going to be king, and that's where I'm going to continue to invest in. So this video was all over the place, man. I don't know, but let me know down in the comments, like what talking point and thing really relates to you, if you relate to any of that. And like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.